The question of whether Darth Sidious, also known as Emperor Palpatine, was aware of the Yuuzhan Vong and was actively preparing for their eventual invasion has sparked substantial debate among Star Wars scholars and fans alike. The Yuuzhan Vong, a race of extragalactic invaders introduced in the new Jedi Order series, represent one of the greatest threats the galaxy has ever faced. They are distinct in their rejection of the Force and reliance on biotechnology, traits that make them unlike any other faction encountered in Star Wars lore. Examining Palpatine's extensive plans, his obsession with control, and his cryptic references to threats beyond the known galaxy, there is considerable evidence to suggest that he was indeed aware of the Yuuzhan Vong, or, at the very least, the potential for a similar extragalactic threat. One of the most compelling arguments for Sidious's awareness of the Yuuzhan Vong stems from his overarching strategy for consolidating power. Sidious's rise to power was characterized by unparalleled manipulation and foresight. His orchestration of the Clone Wars, the fall of the Jedi Order, and the establishment of the Galactic Empire were not simply ends in themselves but were part of a grander vision. Sidious was obsessed with the idea of preserving and controlling the galaxy under a centralized authority, and his vast military buildup and the creation of the Death Star superweapons can be interpreted as preparations for more than just the subjugation of rebellious systems. The unknown regions hold particular significance in this context. These largely uncharted territories, situated on the galactic fringes, have long been depicted as a source of mystery and danger. Palpatine showed an uncharacteristic level of interest in these regions, establishing secret outposts and sending exploratory missions during his reign. The Emperor even tasked key figures, such as Grand Admiral Thrawn, with conducting reconnaissance in the unknown regions. Thrawn, known for his strategic brilliance and connections to his homeworld of Sicila, reported back on potential threats to the Empire, including species and forces that could destabilize the galaxy. This strategic focus suggests that Sidious had a genuine concern about unknown forces beyond the galactic borders. Furthermore, Palpatine's mastery of the dark side of the Force and his access to ancient Sith knowledge may have provided him with insights into the existence of the Yuuzhan Vong. Sith teachings often delve into prophecies, forbidden knowledge, and the exploration of threats both ancient and potential. It is conceivable that Sidious came across records or premonitions of a species like the Yuuzhan Vong through Sith holocrons or his intense study of the Force. The Yuuzhan Vong's unique disconnection from the Force may have been seen as a profound threat to the Sith philosophy, which relies heavily on the manipulation of this universal energy. Another element supporting this theory is the design of the Empire itself. The Empire was, in many ways, a machine built for war. From the moment he declared himself Emperor, Sidious placed an extraordinary emphasis on militarization. Star destroyers, the Death Star, and an unrelenting drive to suppress dissent can be viewed not merely as tools of tyranny, but as the necessary infrastructure to defend against an unimaginable enemy. Critics of this perspective might argue that these measures were merely reflective of Sidious's desire for personal power. However, the extent of his military ambitions, particularly his obsession with creating weapons of mass destruction, suggests a deeper, perhaps more existential motivation. The timeline of events also raises intriguing possibilities. The Yuuzhan Vong had been scouting the galaxy for decades before their full-scale invasion, often conducting probing attacks and testing the galaxy's defenses. Some of these incursions could have reached the attention of Sidious, who would undoubtedly recognize the implications of such a threat. His adept manipulation of intelligence networks, along with his almost supernatural ability to foresee events, implies he may have been alerted to the Vong's presence long before their arrival. While the canon is unclear on specific instances of Sidious's knowledge of the Vong, the existence of records pointing to disturbances in the Outer Rim and the unknown regions could provide circumstantial evidence. In addition to Palpatine's grand strategies, his personal interest in Force-sensitive individuals and species across the galaxy might provide further insight. The Yuuzhan Vong's immunity to the Force would have represented an existential anomaly for the Sith, who viewed the Force as the ultimate tool for domination and survival. Sidious's fascination with manipulating life itself evident in his experiments with cloning, immortality, and alchemical creations could be interpreted as preparation for combating a species immune to conventional Force-based powers. The establishment of the Imperial Military Academy system and the imposition of rigid control over galactic society can also be reinterpreted through this lens. Sidious's drive to discipline and homogenize the galaxy could reflect a desire to unify the galaxy in the face of external threats. His creation of a militarized state capable of mobilizing vast resources and armies at a moment's notice suggests that he envisioned the need for such strength in the future. If Palpatine was aware of the Yuuzhan Vong, his methods for dealing with the threat would have been rooted in his characteristic approach, the pursuit of absolute power. He may have sought to strengthen the Empire to withstand the Vong, believing that only a unified and militarized galaxy could face such an invasion. Alternatively, it is possible that Palpatine intended to turn the Vong to his advantage, much as he did with other dark forces, using their unique biology and technology to further his own goals. Sidious's contingency plans also merit scrutiny. His penchant for long-term planning is exemplified by the way he manipulated Anakin Skywalker into becoming Darth Vader, the construction of a fleet on Exegol, as revealed in The Rise of Skywalker, and the establishment of shadow networks to maintain control even in the event of his death. These preparations indicate that Sidious was always thinking several moves ahead, considering threats that others would not even imagine. The Yuuzhan Vong, as an extragalactic threat, fit perfectly into the type of existential crisis Sidious would plan for. In conclusion, while there is no definitive evidence that Darth Sidious explicitly knew of the Yuuzhan Vong, there are compelling reasons to believe he was aware of an impending extragalactic threat and that his actions were, in part, preparations for it. His focus on the unknown regions, militarization of the galaxy, obsession with dark knowledge, and long-term planning all suggest that he was not solely concerned with internal galactic politics, but was also considering the possibility of external dangers. Palpatine's genius lay in his ability to see beyond the immediate and prepare for contingencies others could not comprehend. The Empire, for all its flaws and tyranny, may have been the galaxy's best hope against the Yuuzhan Vong, an ironic testament to the foresight of one of the most infamous figures in Star Wars history. Expanding further on the argument, we must consider the peculiar actions and decisions that Palpatine took during his reign. The Emperor's fixation on the unknown regions was not merely a product of curiosity or even expansionism, it was strategic. These regions were largely uncharted, rife with dangers and mysteries that could pose existential threats to the galaxy. Palpatine's decision to work closely with Thrawn, a native of the unknown regions who had an intimate understanding of their intricacies, provides a compelling clue. Thrawn's tactical brilliance and first-hand experience with threats in the unknown regions made him a valuable ally, despite his non-human status a rarity in the xenophobic Empire. Thrawn's own writings and actions imply that he was aware of emerging threats from beyond the known galaxy. His efforts to fortify imperial power were often justified as necessary to prepare for these threats. It is not unreasonable to speculate that Thrawn may have informed Palpatine of dangers like the Yuuzhan Vong, particularly given the Chiss Ascendancy's history of encountering such forces. If so, Palpatine's actions, such as the establishment of secret bases and fleets in the unknown regions, take on an entirely new dimension. They were not only meant to consolidate his rule, but to act as a bulwark against threats from beyond. Moreover, the Emperor's long-term goals often extended far beyond the scope of his immediate reign. Palpatine's fascination with immortality, for instance, was likely not merely a selfish desire to cling to power indefinitely. It was also a practical measure to ensure that he could shepherd the galaxy through crises that might take centuries to unfold. His experiments with cloning and Sith alchemy, as well as his efforts to transcend death, reflect an understanding of the galaxy's fragility and the need for continuity and leadership to withstand existential threats. The Yuuzhan Vong represented a challenge unlike any other, one that undermined the fundamental assumptions about the Force and galactic civilization. Palpatine's relentless drive to dominate the galaxy might have been, in part, a recognition that a fractured galaxy would be unable to survive such a foe. The New Republic's struggles against the Yuuzhan Vong invasion serve as a testament to this. Without the central authority and military might of the Empire, the galaxy was initially unprepared to deal with the Vong's unique combination of fanaticism and technological superiority. One must also consider the significance of the Death Star in this context. While the Death Star is often regarded as the ultimate symbol of tyranny and oppression, its construction could be seen as a response to a perceived external threat. A superweapon capable of destroying entire planets might seem excessive for quelling rebellions, but makes more sense when viewed as a tool to counter an extragalactic invader with an entirely different set of strategies and resources. The Yuuzhan Vong's reliance on living planets and their disdain for traditional technology would have made them particularly vulnerable to such a weapon, potentially validating the Death Star's creation from a defensive standpoint. Palpatine's preparation extended beyond mere military might. His manipulation of the galaxy's political, social, and economic structures ensured a level of control and efficiency that would be difficult to replicate under a more democratic system. The Empire's bureaucratic machinery, though oppressive, allowed for rapid mobilization of resources and troops. This level of centralized authority would have been invaluable in responding to a crisis like the Yuuzhan Vong invasion. The slow and often ineffective response of the New Republic to the Vong highlights the weaknesses of a decentralized and democratic system in the face of an existential threat. However, it is important to acknowledge that if Sidious was indeed aware of the Yuuzhan Vong, his preparations were far from altruistic. Palpatine's worldview was fundamentally rooted in the Sith philosophy of domination and self-preservation. His efforts to consolidate power and prepare for external threats were always in service of his own goals, rather than a genuine desire to protect the galaxy. The suffering and oppression he inflicted upon countless beings cannot be justified, even if his long-term vision included defending the galaxy from the Yuuzhan Vong. Additionally, Palpatine's plans may have been incomplete or flawed. While his foresight and strategic genius are undeniable, his over-reliance on fear and oppression to maintain control ultimately led to the Empire's downfall. His inability to consider alternative methods of governance or foster genuine loyalty among his subjects left the galaxy fractured and vulnerable after his death. This weakness was exploited by the Yuuzhan Vong, who took advantage of the power vacuum created by the Empire's collapse. In retrospect, Palpatine's legacy is a paradox. His reign brought unparalleled suffering and destruction, yet his vision and preparations may have been the galaxy's best chance at surviving an existential crisis like the Yuuzhan Vong invasion. Whether he knew of the Vong specifically or simply anticipated the possibility of a similar threat, his actions suggest a level of foresight unmatched by any other leader in galactic history. However, his methods rooted in fear, oppression, and the dark side undermined his ability to achieve his ultimate goals. The question of whether Palpatine knew about the Yuuzhan Vong cannot be answered definitively, but the circumstantial evidence is compelling. His interest in the unknown regions, his partnership with Thrawn, his obsession with militarization and superweapons, and his long-term planning all point to an awareness of threats beyond the galaxy's borders. Whether he knew the specifics of the Yuuzhan Vong or merely anticipated the possibility of a similar crisis, Palpatine's preparations demonstrate a level of strategic thinking that few in the galaxy could comprehend. Ultimately, the galaxy's history is a tragic testament to the dual-edged nature of Palpatine's rule. His tyranny sowed the seeds of rebellion and division, yet his vision and preparations may have been the only hope for uniting the galaxy against an incomprehensible foe. The Yuuzhan Vong invasion, with all its horrors, serves as a reminder of the dangers that lurk beyond the known galaxy and of the lengths to which one man went to prepare for them.